Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of It's Just Business. I'm your host, Jonah Barnes Moore, aka Busy J, and this is my co-host, who also happens to be my mother.
I'm Ina Barnes, aka Busy E.
And we want to thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes.
Now, just a disclaimer. We're forced to put this podcast out earlier than a lot of them because of the time-sensitive information. Now, we have plenty of other podcasts, but we wanted to bump this one up specifically because of the timing. And it has to deal with a podcast that we have two podcasts on, actually, which is Amazon, right? Amazon's a huge game changer. And so we're going to lead with this one when it comes to our conversation about Amazon. So that is Amazon. We already know, everybody knows Amazon. It's holidays. You're probably doing your shopping on Amazon. You probably got your Amazon Video, your Amazon Music. You probably have had some of the books. You probably even work for Amazon doing the whole delivery thing. You probably got your Alexa. You probably got all these different things. Amazon's trying to take over the world.
They are taking over the world.
And yeah, you got an Amazon business card, Amazon, all kinds of stuff. You get Amazon healthcare. You're gonna have Amazon everything. But anyway, all that to say, Amazon hasn't stopped. They're continuing to innovate. And here's one more innovation that came across yesterday, or 2 days ago, technically. It's December 2nd. And that is Amazon Web Services reveals new blockchain products, right? Now, you guys are probably like, well, I don't even know what blockchain is. That's what this podcast is about. We're going to tell you what blockchain is. But first, we want to preface it with the fact that you now have easy access to blockchain and can use it for your business or whatever it is that you want to do because they're offering you a service that allows you to enter and have access to either the Ethereum network or the Hyperledger network. So let me read this to you guys real quick so you guys can understand that you have access now. All right. So Amazon Web Services reveals new blockchain products. AWS, the digital arm of Amazon, has released new blockchain products. The decision to launch these services arrives at the lowest point of the virtual currency market in more than a year. The information was released by CNBC a few days ago. The company announced the last week that it has introduced, they gotta rewrite this. The company announced the last week that it has introduced two new services that include a managed blockchain offering and the Quantum Ledger database. According to a press release uploaded by the company, Amazon Managed Blockchain is a fully managed service that makes it easy to create and manage scalable blockchain network. In order to do that, AWS used Hyperledger Fabric and the Ethereum network. The new product eliminates the overhead required to create the network. At the same time, it automatically scales in order to meet the demand of its users. Now, if you know what blockchain is, you're probably like, wow, because that's not an easy thing to do. First thing, when you think about blockchain network is like, how can I get the computing power to actually have a network and how can I actually scale it? Well, Amazon's going to do that for you, and they pretty much just want you to put your application or whatever on top of their network and run and see where your idea goes, which is a beautiful thing because a big barrier for at least smaller businesses is access to that technology, and Amazon is providing that. So
exciting. Very exciting
stuff. Now, let's take a step back. What is blockchain technology?
What is blockchain?
I almost had an argument with somebody on LinkedIn, I forget the person's name, but they were saying like, oh, blockchain and AI is just a buzzword, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, my guy, blockchain is already in use. It's going to change the world. Artificial intelligence, it's already in use. It's going to change the world. We have a podcast on that as well, which you guys will see later, of course.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, but these are tools that businesses can use, that people can use to create value and change the world for better, for whatever they're trying to do. So that's why it's important that you understand what blockchain is, and that's what we're going to tell you today. So, any comments before I get started?
No, I'm excited to get into this. I think this is going to be really informative.
I think so too. All right, so let's get started. And you know how I like to start with a Google definition, right? Just so everybody can see, you can Google it on your phone.
Google it.
And we all can ironically have a consensus of what the definition is and agree on what the definition is through consensus, which is interesting because that's what blockchain kind of does. But anyway.
Google it.
All right. So I'm going to read you the blockchain definition from Google, not the one in the middle. I don't typically like those. If you're on a laptop, the one on the right is typically better. So, it says a blockchain, originally blockchain, which is two words, but it's now one, is a growing list of records called blocks, which are linked using cryptography. Each block contains a cryptographic hash of the previous block, a timestamp, and transaction data, right? So, what is blockchain? It's simply connected data that cannot be duplicated or corrupted because of the protocols that are in place. So I have this board up here to kind of walk us through exactly, because blockchain is really hard to grasp, right? So let's just stick with, don't think about cryptocurrencies right now. Don't think about use cases or anything. How can you use it? Let's simply go through the fact of what blockchain is, right? So the definition, bullet point 1, it's a growing list of record called blocks, right? So it's literally like a block. Think of data in like a block shape, right? That's all it is. A record in blocks, right? Okay. 2. I have to walk through this really slowly. I promise you, because once I start getting to nodes and network, it's going to get crazy. So 2, each block contains a cryptographic hash of the previous block, right? So every blockchain starts with one original block of data, and that's called the Genesis block, right? But every block after that it's connected to has to have a cryptographic hash, or a pretty much unique ID. You can think of a fingerprint or social security number that is connected with the Genesis block, right? So the second block of data, so you have the Genesis block, then you have your first block of data, which is other transactions, other data, right? In order for it to be on the same blockchain network, it has to have the cryptographic hash from the Genesis block, right? So, because that is the previous block. Now, the Genesis block does not have any other previous blocks to go off because it's the first one. Okay? Slowing down, stopping there, take it in. Okay. Now, this cryptographic hash, that's this long number of digits and letters.
Alphanumeric.
Alphanumeric digits and letters used as an ID number, right? So, the second block has to have a cryptographic hash from the previous block. So in this case, block 2 has to have the cryptographic hash from block 1. And block 3 would have to have the cryptographic hash from block 2, or the unique identification number from block 2, and so on and so forth, right? Because the data is mathematically intertwined with that cryptographic hash. So that's how you know it's a part of the same blockchain and it comes from the same link of events and data. Okay? I hope you guys caught that, because that's as simple as I can get it. All right. So next, each block, all right, not only has a cryptographic hash, but it also has a timestamp. So when it happened, obviously, you want to know when this data or this transaction actually happened, right? So it has a timestamp and it has transaction data, right? So in cryptocurrency, transaction data is value, right? How much of a certain currency was actually put in this block, has a timestamp, use the previous hash to actually execute a transaction, right? That's simply how the blockchain works, okay? So it uses a cryptographic hash to verify that it's a part of the same blockchain, right? The second block, or the succeeding block, has a cryptographic hash from the previous block to verify that it's on the same blockchain. It's on the same link. Think of an actual chain. You need to make sure, how do you know that this transaction is a part of the same chain, right? It has to have a unique identification number.
Which links it.
Okay? Timestamp. So, when it happened, transaction data. Transaction data could be anything. We'll talk about that a little later, because I don't want to overwhelm you with the possibilities of blockchain. So it just has to have some form of data. If you think cryptocurrency, that currency is value, the number of a certain token, the number of a certain currency or whatever, right? Has to have that data on the same blockchain. Okay, cool. So that's blockchain in its simplest form. You're basically linking data that is incorruptible, right? And that is linked to previous blocks. Simple as that. Okay. Now, big disclaimer here. They're like, okay, that's easy to understand. Now, this is what you have to understand also. Blockchain is software, right? This isn't some kind of hard disk thing. It's not an actual chain. It's literally software that is on computers or on nodes, which we're actually going to talk about right now, right? So a blockchain network, now that you know what a blockchain is, a blockchain network is composed of nodes, right? This is the technical term, nodes. People like to sound smart. What is a node, right? So I'm going to read you this definition from Lisk.io. They have a blockchain academy. It's free information. You can go look it up and it's really helpful. So I'm going to read you this basic definition of what a node is, because a node actually makes up this blockchain network, right? So a node is a device on a blockchain network that is in essence the foundation of the technology, allowing it to function and survive. Nodes are distributed across a wide network and carry out a variety of tasks, right? I'm going to skip all this part, but basically a node can be any electronic device, right? So your cell phone, your laptop, or anything that has an internet connection. Now, what's the sole purpose of a node? The purpose of a node is to copy the blockchain that we just talked about, right? This link of cryptographic hashes on to a node so that you can have more scalability and more efficiency when approving and monitoring transactions, right? So you think, if you are trying to pretty much store a bunch of data, storing it in one place, that will require a lot from one computer, right? So if I want to store the data for the country in my phone, I couldn't possibly do that, right? But if I had laptops all over the country and expanded the network, the transactions can go a lot faster, and then you have more consensus and decentralization because of these nodes that are hold copies of the blockchain, right? And so each node has to have a copy of the blockchain, or else it will not be on that network. Okay. And I wrote that here, if you can see it, I'll read it again. But blockchain networks are made up of nodes. Nodes are electronic devices connected to the internet that carry a copy of a blockchain, right? So my laptop, if I wanted to make a node, I would literally have to download the blockchain from another laptop, wherever, right? And then this laptop would now be on the network and be responsible for making sure the transactions go through, verifying the transactions, making sure they're a part of that same blockchain, right? Okay.
And all of the nodes on the same chain have to agree.
Exactly. And
Okay.
And that's where we're leading to next. I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
So now, in order for there not to be any duplicated transactions, right? In order for the blockchain to actually maintain its integrity of truth and right, that these things happened and this data cannot be altered in any form of way, right? So the nodes help with actually implementing the transaction, but this is the big part that actually makes sure that the data that's put on these blockchains are incorruptible. And that is the consensus protocol, right? So I'm going to read this definition to you as well, because in my own words, you probably get confused, but this makes it a lot simpler. Okay. So consensus protocols, I'm using a definition from Lisk.io, again, because they have a really good website that breaks it down in really simple terms. But consensus protocols are one of the most important revolutionary aspects of blockchain technology. These protocols create an irrefutable system of agreement between various devices or nodes across the distributed network, whilst preventing exploitation of the system, right? So basically, the consensus protocol is making sure that every node on the network, how can we make sure that that they all agree with each other when it comes to the transactions that are happening on the blockchain, right? That's a really important aspect of it, because the way you do that exposes you to different flaws. Now, there's many different consensus protocols, right? The most common is proof of work, and that's what Bitcoin uses. And I don't want to get too deep into protocols because that's a really hairy issue. And then that creates a lot of debate around which one's the best, which one's the most efficient, which one's the most scalable. But just know that a protocol has to be in place so that all the nodes agree on a transaction when it happens on a blockchain, and that they update each other, right? Because you got to think, transactions are happening every day, almost every second, right? So my laptop has to constantly update itself with what's the latest transaction that happened, even when it happened on a different node. The consensus protocol manages that whole system, and that's where a lot of the debate is with the higher technology, is because there's different ways to do that. There's different ways to reach a consensus about updating all the nodes, making sure everything is right on the blockchain and keeping it decentralized, right? Because now we can kind of talk about briefly the decentralization aspect of blockchain, because that's what everybody talks about, right? Oh, it's decentralized. And like, what does that even mean? Well, this means that my laptop, right, if I'm on the network, my laptop can actually approve a transaction, right? There's not just one single laptop that verifies a transaction. Like, I don't have the key to say, okay, force the transaction through because I want to take out $1 million of Bitcoin, right? I don't have that power because the consensus protocol decentralizes the network. So it makes it so there's a certain amount of anonymity. I'm like Nemo right now. I live in anonymity. Anyway, anonymousness. I'm going to say that. Anonymity. Whatever.
There you go. That
anonymity.
Was it.
So
yes.
when I get angry, I can say it. Anonymity on the network, right? So therefore, you're kind of creating what they like to call a trustless system, or a system that is constantly auditing itself and updating itself. So there's no central power that can force a transaction through and say, okay, this transaction happened even though it didn't, right? That's what the consensus protocol does. It manages that whole process. It creates the trustless system and also creates the decentralized aspect, right? So, real overlook recap, right? So what is a blockchain? It's a growing list of records or blocks of data that are connected to each other through a cryptographic hash, right? Nodes on a network are what process these transactions. The consensus protocol makes sure that all of these transactions update, and they make sure that no false transactions are being implemented onto the blockchain at a consensus level. And so it's self-auditing, making sure that the blockchain has not been corrupted. So it's for security and verification. Okay? So you put all this stuff together, right? You mix it and mash it together, all this wild technology that nobody knows and understands, which I hope you have a better understanding now. And what do you get? They're like, okay, it's data, it's connected. What do you get? Okay, cool. Whew, I got through the hard part.
You got through the hard part. You did great. You did great.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
That's as simple as I got, guys.
Breathe it in. You did good. You did great.
That's as simple as I can get it. So, what are the use cases for this? Now that you have this technology, what can you do with it? Obviously, number one, cryptocurrency, right? Now, cryptocurrency is a medium of exchange. Crypto means cryptographic, so cryptocurrency, digital money that you can use as a medium of exchange, comes as a result of blockchain technology.
Right.
Right.
And cryptocurrency is I think it's probably the most well-known
most well-known
use of blockchain.
Absolutely.
It's the most well-known. It's when you think cryptocurrency, then you think if you
Bitcoin,
think of
obviously
Bitcoin, but also if you think blockchain, that's kind of the thing that you think. You think blockchain, cryptocurrency, blockchain, cryptocurrency. So that is currency.
That's just one
what else can blockchain, this technology, be used for? Right.
And so a really good one that I had a conversation with Willie, the president of the NAACP in Richmond. We were talking about voting, and so this blockchain technology would be a great use for voting, right? Because they still do, like we were having a discussion, it's crazy what they still do. It's like paper ballots and, protocols on if, you can't look at it twice and you have to move it here, bring it here, count it here. I'm like, dude, if you don't just implement some blockchain technology and, have a voting system that's decentralized so nobody has any power on the protocol of counting it or anything, where everybody counts can't be duplicated.
Right. And it's verified. It has that hash. It has the
cryptographic hash, the timestamp.
So everything, timestamp. It has the different nodes. Where is it 50% or?
It has to be over 50%.
At least 50% of the nodes on any one chain have to agree and authenticate the transaction.
If they want to overturn a transaction, they all update. That was the 50% part. So.
If they want to overturn.
If they want to overturn it, right?
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's like 50% of all the nodes, and there could be hundreds or thousands of or millions of nodes on a single network, blockchain network, right? And so the only way a transaction can get reversed is if 50% of those agree on a certain transaction, right? And saying that, yes, this happened even though it didn't.
Okay.
The likelihood of that happening is very low because of the anonymity. You can't really keep track of all the transactions that are happening. It has to be a highly coordinated effort. So which makes it almost impossible for it to happen. It can happen, but it's just super, 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 super unlikely. That it would take like millions of people to coordinate, know how many nodes are out there, and then say, okay, if we all do this at one time, we can get this transaction through. But that's not going to happen the more nodes that are out there because you don't know all the nodes that are on the system.
Right.
So when it comes to voting, your vote won't be, there won't be any hanging chads like in, what was that?
Florida.
Yeah, in Florida, with George Bush. There won't be any of this. It'll literally just be a digital vote on all of the issues, all of the candidates that is kept in a secure and irreversible ledger that can be used to determine what people actually think.
So it could really eliminate voter fraud.
Exactly, voter fraud, and that's a big thing that people talk about.
Right.
And let's go to a whole nother use case, right? Electronic health records. That's something, records. Right? Because your health records need to be kept private, right?
You guys know HIPAA.
Yeah, HIPAA. Right. You gotta conform with HIPAA, abide by the HIPAA rules, right? So imagine that your data's kept electronically using a cryptographic hash, giving it a certain degree of anonymity, a timestamp, transaction data. So transaction data could simply be what test was ran. It could be your test results, your blood results, your whatever it needs to be. And that way you can have that tracked throughout your life. And then you can just go to any doctor and hospital where they don't have to, oh, well, we need to take more blood work. Oh, we need to do this. Oh, we need to do that. It's like, no, you have this already. It's time stamped. You know what test I've had. You don't have to, and the transaction will be on a, distributed on, it could either be a public ledger or it could be a private ledger, depending on, what people really want. So,
and I wonder if using blockchain would eliminate kind of the necessity of having like PPOs versus HMOs. I mean, it would just be like,
what effect would it have on healthcare?
How healthcare is administered.
Yeah, it would be definitely different. The barriers that I would see is just pretty much it would come down to who uses the technology, who doesn't, what hospitals do and what hospitals don't. And I'm sure the insurance companies have a say in obviously what can a hospital do if they want to allow their coverage to be a part of their hospital, right? Or whatever. Right. So it would, obviously it has its implications in this kink. These are like the bigger ones that these have to be well thought out. They have to be discussed and combed through with a fine tooth comb just to iron out all the details. Yeah. But the potential to make a process more efficient and more simple for people is easily there. Right. It's just a matter of people understanding the technology and using it, right? So we've talked about, taxes. I don't know if you guys saw that Ohio is going to accept Bitcoin as a form to pay its taxes, which is pretty awesome. Even that's awesome that the government's like, we're going to get in on this cryptocurrency thing. And I don't know if you guys saw either. This is my job now, guys. So I'm looking at news all over the world. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is actually looking at cryptocurrency as well because they see the benefits of international coordination when you have a currency that can be sent peer to peer without having to use a bank, because that could easily stimulate economic growth, people can have more access to money and wealth and resources that they need to, live better lives. So the IMF has its eye on cryptocurrency, and this is all credit to blockchain technology. Without blockchain technology, this really wouldn't even be possible. So that's why blockchain is really a big deal, because it's not just limited to cryptocurrency. Right. It has all of these other different use cases. Right. And by the way, let's just think about the things that we can't think about simply because our minds aren't creative anymore. Not to say that you're not creative. I'm saying if you're around my age, your creativity has gone down. But the children underneath us, imagine when they understand fully what blockchain is, what can they do with this technology? Because they have no bounds in their minds when they're creating stuff. They'll be able to use this in a way that we can't even see right now. In 10 years, 20 years, we'd be like, wow, I would never imagine that we had these capabilities because of blockchain. And that's why it's important to understand what it is.
But I like the example that you gave earlier this afternoon about one of the potential uses for blockchain technology.
Which was, talk about at work?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I like this idea a lot.
So this one is one I came up with as we were just discussing it, because we are, we understand that blockchain is big right now and people are having a hard time understanding it. So we want to give you the basics in this podcast, but we also want to kind of help you, get those creative juices flowing and innovate, right? Think about, what does this mean? What can this mean for you or your business? So one of the things that I came up with was pretty much work activity and bonuses, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is a very centralized process that has to do with the, perspective that your superiors have of you and of your work, right?
Right.
But, and they have you set goals, of course, and then, they determine if you met the goals and blah, 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 blah. Right. But what if work activity could be tracked using a blockchain, right? So you have this timestamp, you have transaction data, and you have a cryptographic hash to make sure that it was verified, right?
Of all of your work, all of your work product,
everything you've done every day, going in to work, clocking in, going out, so timeliness, everything. They could evaluate that in a non-biased way because all your data is there, right? And then you have smart contracts execute, right? So smart contracts are as another thing that's a result of blockchain technology. So it's like, given certain data that comes through, an API or a system can execute a function such as, I was saying bonus pay in this case. Mm-hmm. How many stocks of share will you get, or how much pay are you entitled to because of your performance?
Right.
And you can have a performance scale of, you did this, because they usually have that, but it's all subjective to your superiors and how they think of you. And so this way you kind of eliminate all that bias, right? You simply just have a system based on your work and productivity, use the proper measurements, and then smart contracts execute based on your performance, and that'll determine your bonus, as opposed to, I didn't get my raise because my boss didn't like me, or I didn't get my raise because they want,
because you all can imagine the scenario where, a manager or a boss or somebody is sitting there, okay, let me go over Joe Blow's performance, and I guess they perform, I give them a 5 out of 7.
Right.
It's subjective.
And it's super subjective.
You can see the visual of the person making some judgment calls and decision calls. Yeah. But when you take the humanity, the human being out of it, then you put it in here, you put it in a hard coding software. Yeah. Mm-hmm. These are hard numbers. The numbers. Then it's like.
Then that's when you
can
say
the employee can say, what?
Yeah.
The employee can be happy about what happens, or they can be unhappy about what happens. But it's all blocked. It's all.
If it's all verified.
And it's.
So. I'll give you an example. A brief example is like when my previous supervisor, because we all had to do self-evaluations, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure if you've been at a corporate job somewhere, I did self-evaluation. It was like, how do you think your performance was? I was like, I think it's really well, seeing that I got promoted from, being a part-time supervisor to a full-time supervisor. Mm-hmm. I did all these things, X, Y, and Z. And so when we had the face-to-face evaluation, he was like, yeah, that may be true, but I can't speak to that because I don't know the work that you did. Right. And so therefore, his evaluation was completely different of me than what mine was. Mm-hmm. And so with blockchain technology, if you were able to see that, like, oh, wow, he actually, did do what he said he did. Mm-hmm. His numbers were, actually up because of his implementations, then, maybe he should get this kind of rating. But because he didn't have that knowledge, then he had to use his own subjective thinking into giving me what he thought I was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've actually sat in a review once where somebody was giving me some feedback, and I said, I didn't, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, it seems like you're defensive right now. And I said, that's interesting because I don't feel defensive. Mm-hmm. I don't feel, because I know when you're feeling defensive. I know when I feel defensive.
Right.
And I was like, that's interesting because I don't feel, I said, so thank you for the feedback. That's really helpful to me, but I appreciate that. Let me think about that. Let me work on that. So it was all like, oh my goodness, I received it. I took it in, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, interesting. Yeah. That was an observation being made of performance evaluation, which I got a great raise. I mean, it was just one piece of feedback, and I was like, that's really interesting to me because I was getting a great raise. Mm-hmm. I was getting really good. Everything was really good, but then you're looking a little defensive, right? And I'm like, huh. Yeah. And so that to me was subjective.
And blockchain will take all of that subjectiveness out. And it'll give you all just straight numbers. You guys agree on the metrics of how I should be graded, and then your work. And that'll incentivize people as well because it won't be subjective, right? It'll be, no, it's just literally on how hard I work. That's what I get paid.
Yeah.
that I think is a major incentive for people, because now it's like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do day to day, and maybe even require a little less management, right?
And really, well, yeah. But that's one example of how you can use blockchain. Just having the conversation just hopefully spark some ideas, because that is ultimately the question that we wanted to do. Jonah really wanted to push this one forward and do blockchain up front, and trust me, this was a very steep learning curve for me. Very steep. But I said to him earlier this morning, I said, I know what blockchain is. And he said, really, what is it? And then I gave him the definition, and he goes, that's right. Because he knew how steep my learning curve was on this. But once I got, it's like once it clicked over, I'm like, now I understand
exactly.
the thing.
And that's one of the things. It just needs to, once it clicks over, you'll be able to see. But it's all about, trying to make it simple in the most simplest form possible. Because before I was doing this podcast, you literally, and before even Lisk had its little website, you'd have to go and read white papers, which are pretty much, and that's on cryptocurrencies. It's these long, journal-like, if you've ever had like professional academic journals and had to read those, it's just like that. But long and it's hard to understand. But we wanted to make it really simple for you guys, so that you can understand this technology is here and it's going to change the world. Yes. And for decision makers, we really want you guys to see this, because now I think that's the biggest thing that decision makers are trying to understand. It's like, okay, we get it, it's here. Cryptocurrency is one of them. How can we use it? And so what we want to tell you is this. The result of the result of blockchain technology is you get an incorruptible ledger of data, right? Transparency, clear transparency, and decentralization, and self-auditing and self-regulation amongst data, right?
Right.
So the question becomes, with those things, how can you implement those into your company, right? What are the uses that you have internally that could use this process, that could benefit from this process? How can you use this to leverage yourself against the competition in your industry, right? These are the questions that you guys need to figure out. And oh, by the way, we would gladly help you with that, right? Because at JBM Consultants, what we do specifically with this, we're starting a whole nother program specifically for blockchain technology, because it's so hot, right? With the blockchain technology, we'll come into your organization, we'll give you a presentation on what it is, right? And then we will have a facilitation on how can you implement this internally, or what products can you make from this blockchain technology. And we do that through facilitation, so you can organically develop use cases, your own use cases for your own companies that are custom to you. Right? So that's what we want to do here at JBM Consultants. We obviously are big on innovation. Blockchain is coming. It's here. Blockchain is a tool that you can use. We want to help you guys leverage this tool so that you don't get left behind, right? You don't become Blockbuster. You don't become Hollywood Video. You don't become these companies that just went out of business because they failed to innovate.
Toys R Us.
Right? Toys R Us. Oh my God. Don't even get me started on the retail industry. But you can see, and I know the CEOs and the decision makers, and they see it coming. So now it's all about taking that actionable step, understanding the new technologies, developing your own set of use cases for these technologies. And so that's what we do at JBM Consultants.
Right.
And then for the general public, you guys have to be in tune with this as well, because these innovations are constantly changing our lives just like that, right? The second the iPhone came out, changed everybody's life just like that. Second Wi-Fi came out, changed everybody's life just like that. So you have to be in tune with these things so you can stay ready, so you don't have to get ready, right? Because at the end of the day, innovation is a tool, right? But if you don't have access to those tools, you will get left behind and have to do more catch up than getting ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you say that PlayStation changed everything? Because we had Nintendo, right? Well, you had Nintendo, but it was like, because growing up we had Pong, right?
PlayStation.
Would you say, because I don't think that anybody, because they have PlayStation 1000 now, but I haven't seen it like a new Nintendo. Do you know what I mean?
Nintendo's, they're in a different, Nintendo has the Nintendo Wii, right?
The Wii.
Then they had this little handheld thing. I don't know what it's called anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like trying to go for more portable devices,
Mm-hmm.
artificial, virtual reality, and augmented reality.
Oh, so they're going in a different.
Yeah, they're going
okay,
into
so
PlayStation and Xbox are like the two like consoles that are that you use for everything.
Okay.
But PlayStation did their innovation was simply
I don't know what made me think of
using
that.
a disc, right? They used a disc as opposed to that cartridge that all the Nintendos use. Yeah, yeah. These young kids probably don't even know what we're talking about, but you have to blow, and you stick it in there and restart it, and and then the controller, I would say they innovated with that because the other Nintendo 64 was like, primary sticking to that joystick. This was like, well, now you got two joysticks, right? And to move more unilaterally. But Xbox followed suit. Okay. Yeah, but that's a good study. I think we should do a case study on that. That would actually be really interesting.
We'll put a pin in it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. But yeah, they did change because after that, after they came out with the disc, everything's been discs, right? And then I don't know who came out with the digital ones first, but I think after that, now you don't even need a disc. You can buy something directly off of your PlayStation online. Just download the game, so you don't even have to go into the store. And by the way,
must be putting those out of business. GameStop and all of those.
Yeah, a little bit. They're suffering, but they're trying to not let it be known. I got an idea for them that would just make everything better. This idea could have saved Toys R Us as well, but I'm a consultant, so you have to reach out to me to figure that part out.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole, but it just came to me.
And I was just going to wrap up to say that even PlayStation allowed you to buy games with your Bitcoin at one point in time. So as you can see, blockchain technology is already here. It's a part of the innovative process. It's all a matter of how you implement it, right? So, quick recap, just real quick recap, because I know it's a lot of information. We talked about what is blockchain. Growing list of data records called blocks. Each block contains a cryptographic hash, a time step, transaction data. Blockchain is software, so that means it's coding, right? The blockchain network is made up of nodes, which are any electronic device that has access to the internet and a copy of the blockchain, right? Consensus protocols make sure that the whole network is updated and constantly self-auditing so that the blockchain becomes incorruptible. As a result, you get an incorruptible ledger, transparency, decentralization, and a trustless system, meaning a system that requires no trust at all because it's self-auditing. And so we challenge you to figure out how can these technologies be tools for you and you can use them to your benefit, right? Whew, that was a quick recap. Okay,
that was a great recap. Good job.
All right, so our main thing, we just wanted to let you guys know that we're here for you. If you're a business, if you're an individual, if you're a startup that you want to, let's have the conversation because that's how it's really you're going to get those sparks through conversations and facilitations. Yes. Facilitations create so many innovative sparks, and I've done them myself. I've been a part of them, and it's really a creative process that can change the future. So please reach out to us at JBM Consultants. Fill out our contact form. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm at Busy J on Instagram and Busy J on Twitter. My mother's at Busy EDB on Twitter. You can look us up at JBM Consultants on Facebook. Go visit the website, jbmconsultants.org. And also, as you guys can see, I don't know if you can see, can you see? We got the merch. We got the Innovation Thinking Cap. Innovators Cap first edition, the blue, it's Nike, y'all. It's for real. It's for real. And then we got the young V-neck.
This is
long
for the ladies.
The long sleeve. But we're gonna do a little editing on it because I wanted better quality. But the merch is there, y'all. The hats
are great. The mugs.
Yeah, then we got the mugs. coming
check
too.
It out.
So I'm gonna do a little tweakage on it so that it can be right in quality. But yeah, we got the merch for y'all. So y'all go ahead and check that out at jbmconsultants.org and support any way you can. So at the end of the day, now I'm going to say this to that user. This is for you, user, who I forget who it was. Talking about, it sounds good. Sounds good. Like blockchain and AI are buzzwords. No.
Are you taking this personally?
I'm not taking it, bro. I'm letting them know this is big business over here. You know what I'm saying? Blockchain is here. AI is here and it's being used. Ain't no buzzword. Maybe to you because you don't know what it is. Anyway, and I say all that to say, at the end of the day, for us, it's not personal.
It's just business.
Take care, you guys.
See you next time.